So very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, in many cases, I look around. It's my privilege, and more than that, to be able to welcome you here in this fantastic facility of the International Institute of Applied System Analysis. It was Brian Collins who came to our anniversary conference in 2012, and we met and we discussed about collaboration which IIASA has had and is having and will be having in the future with the UK community, with the international community in the system science. And it was Brian Collins, I'm starting with that because he really deserves all the credit for this meeting, who suggested that next meeting after the one you had in Australia should be here. Brian and others did a lot of work, and many of you were involved in preparations. And as a result of that, we can meet here for the coming 2 days. My name is Pavel Kabat. I'm Director General of IIASA. I'm also Professor of Earth System Science in Netherlands. I have been here at IIASA for 2.5 years. Will stay at least 5 years more. And as you, I am a scientist doing my daily things, having my PhDs, at the same time trying to run this institute, which is a unique facility. And I decided to give you some of the background about this facility because believe me, I have been here for 2.5 years. I am still excited every single minute and surprised that such a thing actually can exist in current academic and the R&D landscape. This is how the world looked like only 50 years ago. Only 50 years ago. We had a Berlin Wall. We had an oil crisis in the 70s. We had a race, space war race starting up. And all of that. All of you probably remember, or many of you remember. It was during those contested times in the history where a vision did matter. After assassination of the JFK and Cuba crisis, Lyndon Johnson took a presidency in the United States, and he started an offensive called science diplomacy. And as a part of it, during these very difficult times, he approached leadership of the Soviet Union with an idea, with a suggestion: look, we have all these differences and we have all these tensions. Why don't we try to use science as a bridge? As a bridge across divide, as a bridge across West-East divide at that time. And he approached the leadership of Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union responded positively. And they appointed Prime Minister Alexei Kosygin to do negotiations with the US party about possibility of an institute which will be looking into the problems which are interesting to be looked at by both sides during those difficult times. Now, believe me, the negotiations which took place over 4 years, these were written up in many books, and those books read like the best detective of the Cold War. I mean, I'm recommending a couple of those. Fantastic track of record about how negotiations started, how they almost failed, how they came back, and all of that. However, in the end, on the October the 4th, 1972, IIASA was founded by 12 member countries by signing the IIASA Charter at the Royal Society in London. And this is the historical picture where the 12 countries met and signed the Charter. It was the United States and Soviet Union with equal shares of their participation, Japan, and the remaining 9 countries came half from the former Eastern Bloc and half from the former Western Bloc. So, for example, we had 2 Germanys on board at that time. There was a reason, by the way, why IIASA became non-governmental. Sometimes they call us quasi-governmental. And I'm sometimes calling this historical political fact as the best accident which could happen to IIASA, because not being governmental means you are really mean and lean, much faster than anybody else from the UN system, yet connected to the highest levels of the governments which are part of IIASA. This is a couple of historical pictures signing the first IIASA Charter. And of course, during those times, there was a lot of discussion about where IIASA should be hosted. And there were 3 parties interested. It was UK itself, it was France as a founding member, and it was Austria. And Austria came up with this fantastic offer. And this is the facility you are going to enjoy this today and tomorrow. The formal Habsburg Palais. The Palais has a real history here. It was acquired by Maria Theresia in 1740 already. And it was put up as one of the summer palais of the Habsburg monarchy. If you go to history, many of the leaders of the imperial times in Europe have been coming from here. For example, Maria Antoinette was playing here in this garden before we got married to Ludwig and many others. And this history, which is here with the culture, combined with science, is giving to this place a fantastic spirit. The castle, of course, was used for different reasons. By the way, the last imperial inhabitants was Franz Josef and his wife Elizabeth, called Sissi. You may remember the movies every Christmas. That's about Sissi. She lived here. She gave birth to 2 children here, Prince Rudolf. And when you come to IIASA, to the other side, you will see some of the historical rooms. However, after the Second War, the place was used as a base for the Russian army. If you know, Austria was under the supervision of both camps until 1955. The Russian army was using the castle for different things, including things like this. Luckily, they were not allowed to enter the upper floor, so this damage has been only mainly done on the ground floor. And it took a lot of millions of shillings to restore the place. It was restored for IIASA. It was the gracious gift of the Austrian government. Of course, the place looked like in 1973. And this is the historical act where the former Minister of Science, Herta Finberg, who is the former director, is signing an act where this facility is given to IIASA for 1 shilling. 1 shilling, something like, I don't know, 20 cent, euro cent, or 20 euro cent is one. We have it here. Of course, we don't own it. It's just given to us without limitation to use it. And luckily, with such a little act of having castle for 1 shilling, there is a big book coming with specifying who is paying for what. Because you can imagine there will be quite a disaster if I would have to pay for this castle. So what you see here happening already now, these days, there is a huge maintenance ongoing. That's all guaranteed by Austrian government. We are now investing 17 million euro to just full refurbishing of the castle. This is all coming to us as the Austrian government gives. I think this is a fantastic, they can stick to this promise signed in 1978. This place is fantastic in many ways, not only academically, but also if you go to history, how many of the leaders came here and spent here times, how many chief scientists of the world spent here times and became chief scientists around the world, including your countries. Not only Bruno Kreisky, but for example, Angela Merkel has been as a postdoc of DDR 6 months, and like this. John Holdren, the current chief scientist of Obama, has been here as a scientist, and many others. And I think this is one of the things which also gives a special spirit to this place. So it's more than 40 years of discussion, conferences, and research and science. And somehow IIASA became a place where many of the things which are now central to the sustainable development research and agendas started. And I will explain you why I think this is the case. It's not because of this castle, it's not because of this particular facility, it's not because of people who are sitting here are such a bright minds, but it is of the system how IIASA is set up. IIASA is a place where essentially no bureaucracy scenario is valid. We are having member countries. Member countries, when they join as an agreement between 3 major clusters of country itself, with top academia, top government, and top funding. For example, the United States, which is still the best example of the membership, has joined and has a membership of IIASA represented by OSTP, which is the Office of the Support of President Obama, the NSF president, and the NAS president. They nominate a national committee, and that committee has all the agencies, organizations involved in it, and this is the way how this is managed, governed. But IIASA is also a place where nobody has a permanent contract. Maximum contract is 1 year. There is no overhead and there is no tax on the dollars coming to us, meaning that every single euro goes to the primary processes mostly. Everybody has to be evaluated and extended based on performance indicators. And it's also a place where a hub function is so important. You will see later in my presentations that about 2,000 scientists, researchers are staying with us for different periods of time, between 1 week and 3 months every year. So it's a hub function as well as the walls and institute itself. Now that combination, I think, this flexibility and freedom, not being governmental, but still being able to talk to heads of the states, and having this possibility to have guests coming here on a very flexible basis, I think is the reason why many of the debates started at IIASA. For example, much before IPCC, much before UNFCCC, after Mr. Pechet, who was here, by the way, as well, had his Club of Rome, the first discussion about CO2 and energy and climate started here. After this, whole community took off and went to the UNFCCC IPCC. Same for the energy. Very first energy outlook for the world was done here in 1980, much before IIASA and other organizations actually started to do that. At that time, it was John Holder as well involved in it. Biosphere, land use, water, all of that somehow was connected to startup here. Some of the keywords about science, what are the past successes? IIASA, I think, was instrumental in showing the way how to proceed. Dynamic systems, multi-criteria decision analysis, adaptive dynamics theory, both theory and applications, game theories in 80s and 90s, which are now coming back into the, for example, governance, agent-based modeling, coupling the social and economic and physical system, stochastic optimization. This was the conference. We are having every 5 years. This is by the charter, a huge conference which is sort of looking back and looking ahead. Last one was in 2012, and it was addressing the future stage of IIASA. Current IIASA is different. In 1990, after the wall went down, of course, the issue was IIASA was established as a bridge during the Cold War. Cold War is over, so maybe we could remove it from the world map. It didn't happen. It was a ministerial conference here in Austria. About 70 countries attended, and IIASA became a global institution with the same mission, to connect through science, East and West, and North and South. We have currently 22 member countries, and this is fantastic, representing major economies around the world. All the BRICS are members of IIASA. The IIASA balance changed a lot. We have a lot of contribution, a lot of input from China, from Brazil, but still also from the countries like Australia, which joined 2 years ago. Mexico joined last June. The prospect is even more exciting. These are countries we are involved with in negotiations about joining or rejoining. You see there are a number of countries in the regions where we are not that very well covered, but we are not a UN. We will not be growing endlessly. There is a ceiling of 30 countries. And the criterion to become a member of IIASA is, of course, a combination of top academia, geopolitical relevance, because the IIASA is set up to understand transition processes in major regions. So, for example, the Middle East, we have only Egypt now, and so we are now actively involved in discussion with Turkey and with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. You see there are also former members, and one of them is United Kingdom. United Kingdom left IIASA, despite of being so active in founding IIASA. It happened during the Margaret Thatcher times. The story is very interesting because Mr. Reagan, when he took office, he started to cool down the East-West relationships in diplomacy and science. And story goes, on Friday afternoon in Washington, he made a statement, press conference, that the United States would leave IIASA, and he invited his Western allies to do so as well. And of course, he never meant it, because the US never means what they do in this context, so they never left. But Margaret Thatcher, since she was the best kid in his class, a Monday morning in London, we had a press conference announcing UK would leave. And of course, Reagan couldn't call her on time, so we lost UK. However, I am very convinced and very hopeful that UK will rejoin us. And of course, IIASA is this system where member country doesn't put any strings attached to membership, so we do collaborate with anyone. For example, we have 22 countries and 65 nationalities on my staff, so we never stop to collaborate with UK. We have a huge portfolio of projects, and of course, that hopefully will be formalized at a point when UK rejoins. This is IIASA, about 300 researchers in-house from more than 50 countries now, close to 4,000 alumni around the world. About 1/4 of them is still connected to us through active research. About 300 institutions, formal collaborations in memoranda and projects. About 1,000 visitors every year who stay more than a week, and about 200 international meetings, which is a big hub function. Big strain, of course, on our staff to organize all of that. Of course, we are one of the meetings of 200 something. And as I said, it's 300 people in-house and about 2,000 people involved in different contracts with us, from the fee contract to the guest researcher contract, and that makes the task force of about 2,500 people every year involved in all the IIASA international and national projects. It is truly transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary, about 1/3 of the natural science and engineers, social scientists and mathematicians and the others, roughly equally divided. We have funding coming from the member countries, which is no strings attached, in different categories. The biggest contributor is the United States, and there are a couple of countries like Russia, China, Germany in the category 2, and then it goes down to lowest category. But IIASA, through this hub function, has been able to attract huge amount of external funding in competitive sense, And this is where we are currently, including quite a large number of the ERC grants. Did pay off in different ways. Of course, there are a couple of very distinguished scientists around the world who were at IIASA and connected to us. Altogether, 11 Nobel Prize winners. Out of them, 4 actually did their work, which was connected to the prize at IIASA here. This is one of them. And on the IPCC, for example, we have been involved from the very beginning. We had 19 lead authors and CLAs on the last IPCC report, including the scenario work. We are also investing into the young generation, capacity building, academic training. This famous program, which started in 1977, produced already about 2,000 alumni, YSSP so-called, and many of them came from your countries. And this is something where we do collaborate on so-called research triplet basis, having the researchers coming here being heavily supervised on their projects and moving back and actually coming back as a postdocs on a regular basis. It's science, it's policy, and because of this proximity of IIASA to the international political world, I just came back, for example, from the United Nations Climate Summit. We have been supporting Secretary General with all the calculations. We are supporting also in the Development Goals agenda. Just 2 examples before I close, how this is effective. One is an initiative which started by article in Science, which IIASA together with colleagues around the world published about the co-synergy, co-benefit between climate and air quality. At the time, the climate was the issue which the US congressman couldn't even spell out because he would get arrested in 2012. So Hillary Clinton came with the idea, let's approach it through air quality. And this article in Science, which was done based on the IIASA models, actually showed the advantages of the co-benefit. That coalition was formed. IIASA is leading the science committee of that, and at this moment there are about 33 countries, organizations, and they are making major input to the reduction of the short-lived gases. In the speech of Obama 3 days ago, he announced additional support to this initiative globally from the US perspective. The other one is recent work, which was on the energy outlook. I mentioned the one in 1980. This was the one in 2012. Major effort to assess the energy futures. And this is one example which I am giving you, not only because of this fantastic policy outreach we have been having with Secretary General, but because this is an example of the system science. The original mission and question was from Secretary General at that time, can you do calculations globally and for the major regions and for the major countries to the effect of possibilities, financial ones and the energy mixes, having universal access to energy everywhere in the world. Currently 2 billion people don't have it. Double the rate of efficiency and double the share of renewables in the energy mix. And we said, well, let's do it, but let's do it from the perspective of this system approach. Energy challenge, this climate challenge. So why don't we say all these scenarios we are going to do will be also within the maximum 2-degree warming, so we address also mitigation. Energy emission is also air quality. Why don't we do this having third sector involved in it, which is the third silo broken, which is the major megacities around the world having the standards of PM 2.5 and PM 10 not exceeded. Every year, 40,000 people die because of the PM 2.5 and air quality. So number 4 sector in this exercise was, let's have this number lowered by factor 10. 4 sectors instead of 1. I skip a couple of things and come to the outcome. These are some of the scenarios. You will have it in your folders, in your handouts. But this is the main part of the story. This is the cost. If you would do only energy security and all these 3 objectives, which I just spelled out as our original mission, you would need to invest about 0.2% of the global GDP, currently about $90 trillion of US dollars. If you do all the investments around the world to stay within the air quality thresholds based on the European standards, you will need about 0.6% of global GDP. And for the climate mitigation, you need about 1%. Now, if you just simply stagger those, and you have a total cost by 2050, it's about 2% of the global GDP to deal with these challenges in the sectoral way. If you do it system way, upfront, this is the total cost. 40% less. This is one of the most convincing examples ever, in my view, where system science shows actually benefit in terms of investment. So this is something which I would like to leave you. And I think the challenge for this conference, when we discuss infrastructure and combinations, is also system challenge. And I think this is one of the examples where this could be downscaled, upscaled in other disciplines and formats. I will leave you with some of the examples of new initiatives, which I think your network could be part of. We are convinced that the divide which started IIASA is still there, actually became even bigger. It's called digital divide and geopolitical divide and all of that. So we established a couple of new partnerships which IIASA is supporting. One of this is new global think tank group, which is putting together the top academia around the world, governments, businesses, civil society, to actually have this system approach high on the agenda of major negotiations. And it's now growing. We just had a meeting last August, and it will come back to IIASA in March, and we are already having major input into the debate, which is combining Davos and UN and academia, all of that together. You may think that IIASA mission to connect Eastern Europe with Western Europe is over. It's not over. Ukraine is out there. And I just would tell you a story about this place, how exciting it is for me every single day. At the moment when Russia invaded Crimea, there was a meeting held about Eurasian economic integration. At the same meeting, same week, with 40 people from all the countries who just were sitting here doing their research to support the possible solutions. From the United States, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Russia, European Union. Same for the Arctic. Arctic Council approached IIASA for a first ever holistic outlook for Arctic Council futures, all the countries. Tropical initiatives as well. And I would like to end up with new initiative, which is Water Futures, which again goes partly to your mission here, because part of it will be the megacities and cities in water. And leave you here, skip this one because of time. Just to point that a lot of things are written about IIASA. Please open your folder when you have time. Go to the website. We have a fantastic communication team, and all of that is sort of put together in different types of magazines and articles. And let me just say once more how happy I am to be able to welcome you at this place and wish you all success and good deliberations coming 2 days. Thank you.